Yeah, we're live.
Hi guys, welcome to week 7 of the Sober Sessions. Today we're joined by the lovely Clemmie Telford. Our subject this week is on relationships in sobriety, and I was kind of struggling to think about what I could talk about. A typical thing would be to talk about me and my wife, but I actually thought I might mention about my relationship with me, actually, how I've changed my perspective around how I feel about myself since I've become sober. And I was thinking about when I was drinking, I had one voice in my head that would tell me just to drink all the time. You know, it was just the same old monotone voice of, in the morning it would be, right, I'm not drinking tonight. There's no way in a million years. And by 2 o'clock, it was the voice telling me maybe it'd be all right to have a couple. Then by 5 o'clock, it was right, I want to get absolutely smashed tonight and start again tomorrow. When I gave up drinking, it was like a whole new lease of life for me. And I was trying to think about the emotions that I had before about myself. And that was like lack of respect. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because I was disgusted by what I saw. I couldn't really look at people in the eye because I was embarrassed, because I knew I looked terrible. You know, it's the old thing that I used to say, oh, I had such a bad night's sleep last night, really bad. But I knew it's because I was hungover. And I used to make that excuse up. And since I've become sober, I've learned to appreciate myself more. I've got my self-respect back, and I actually like myself now. And I can honestly say I'm proud of myself as well, because I'm coming up to 500 days now. And when I started, I didn't know how long it would last, but I feel really proud. So basically, the relationship I've got with me is so much better. And I love myself. How about that? I really love myself.
We all love you too.
Yeah, we do.
I wasn't fishing, but yeah. And it's that thing I say to you about I don't feel like I'm in recovery. I feel like I'm in discovery, because my whole life has opened up now. And again, I am the granddaddy of the group, and I feel like I've got a whole new life ahead of me now, and it feels really exciting. And I've got so many things I can do, made so many new friends, real genuine friends, and it just feels amazing. So that's my take on relationships around sobriety. Now, I'm going to bring in Clemmie now. She's an absolute legend. She's a curator of Mother of All Lists. So if you haven't read them, they're fantastic. Creator of Honestly podcast, which is superb. And guys, if you don't already know, tomorrow she celebrates her first year of sobriety. Tomorrow, Clemmie,
Can't believe it.
Welcome.
Thank you. And it's
How
nice.
are you?
Well, it's nice to be here with you, Dave, because you were one of the people. Like I was on the brink of that decision for so long, and then I must have seen you just over a year ago at a book launch, at Bryony Gordon's book launch, and I hadn't met you before, had I? But we just had. You were in that kind of real honeymoon stage where you'd talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
And
still do.
Yeah. But it was one of the key things, along with talking to Millie from Sober Girls, talking to you just like cemented my decision. And it was definitely like, I'm hearing all this conversation and now I've got to do it. So I really am grateful for that chat that you imposed on me that day.
I had no idea either. I just thought you were like just asking how I was. And then it wasn't for a couple of months, I think, until you text me and said, by the way, I haven't had a drink for 2 months. And it was amazing, I had no idea. And it was ironic that it was at Bryony's book.
I knew though. I don't think I knew, but you just, it all adds up, doesn't it? To go, right, now, no back, I'm going to do it. And
yeah. Sometimes it hovers in the background, doesn't it? And then it just takes one thing to go, do you know what? That's it.
But I mean, that hovering in the background is so exhausting. It's so nice not to have that.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that wasn't the point. But just a bit of love in for Dave. What did we say? We're talking about relationships, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing is I'm kind of relieved of the friends that have come through to really stand by me through this. it's actually a crew that my uni friends who I used to get absolutely trashed with, and I was really worried that I would lose them. But actually, the people that I love and get on well with, I've had absolutely no problem socialising with them since I haven't had a drink, and it's such a kind of nice thing. And it does obviously shine a light on the fact that I always thought all of us were really drunk. Quite possibly it was just me, but it was, yeah, I feel really pleased with that. They were the people that I was most nervous about embarking on this journey, because I thought I'd lose them. And actually what I have done is lost friends who I thought I'd gained along the way, who probably, well, were never destined to stand the test of time. And actually lots of people always say, have you lost people? But if you've lost people who don't want to hang out with you when you're your real you, then they are not your mates anyway, are they?
No, that's true. And what I found as well with the friends that I've got now is they're real genuine friends. There's nothing behind it, you know. It's really lovely to feel that real genuine friendship now. And I went to an event 4 weeks after I become sober, and I was petrified. And now the people I met at that event are almost I could consider lifetime friends, because we all do such a lot in this community now together, all of us, and it's amazing, you know.
It's like the sorting hat. It's like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Kate. Yeah.
Let's put the sober sorting hat on. No.
Yes, if we still get on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good analogy, actually, the sober sorting hat, because that's what I was going to say about friendships as well, that actually those friends, what's that saying, is that those that care don't mind, and those that mind don't care, or something like that. Is that the saying? I think it's something like that. But it's so
Never heard of it.
the people
those that matter.
Those that matter. Yeah. Same sort of idea, yeah. But the idea behind it, I guess, for me, is that those people who genuinely cared about me as a person, and not whether I went out and got them and made a bigger fool out of myself than them, because that's what I would have done. I was somebody to laugh at rather than with when I was drunk. Or the only other person who didn't do that was Lisa, because she could match me and I could laugh at her as much as she could laugh at me. But in genuineness, those people who care about me don't care that I don't drink. They do not care less. Those that, are a bit more like, well, just have one. I've just thought, well, what's their motive? Why do they want me to just have one? Is there something wrong with me as me? Or is it something wrong with them? Am I shining a light on them actually now? Now, because I'm not drunk, do they look more drunk? Whereas before they would have looked sober compared to me. So I think there's a lot to be said for the true friendships, about your real self and, the real person behind it.
Clemmie, does Ben drink?
He does. He drinks a lot less than he did I haven't pushed that on him, although every now and then when he does go on a sober night out and he comes back really smug and he's like preaching it to me, it's like, yeah, I kind of know what you're talking about. But it's on his own journey, and I definitely wouldn't encourage him not to, because I think he can by and large drink in a pretty healthy way. But I find his hangovers intolerable, but I wonder whether I found that's just marriage, maybe, isn't it? I think it's definitely a shift, especially when you're right in the middle of like parenting, which we are. Having a glass of wine was a really easy way for us to access an old part of our relationship, to feel like we were still fun, to feel like we were still connected. And so it's hard to get to that place now, but it is a loss for sure. I do miss that, but we've been doing a lot of jigsaws. Jigsaws are quite fun.
I know. It's and going to bed at 9 o'clock. Yeah. Simon, has it affected your relationship with Michelle? Like, do you has it changed?
Yeah, I think it has, definitely for the positive, in terms of I looking back, I didn't like drink. I drank at home a lot, every evening, same time, same drink, same position on the sofa, as much as I could. And I hated drinking on my own. So it was always, oh, have a drink with me, have a drink with me. And I kind of enabled her to enable myself. But then I didn't like her drinking too much of my wine. I didn't want her to get her hand, she could have a glass or two, but don't like go mad with it. So, although I always had an extra box, but since I've quit, exactly as Clemmie said, she's become so much more mindful about her drinking, and she's a take it or leave it type person. She can have a glass or two and just walk away from it, but she's she doesn't tend to drink during the week. She's got into a lot of the zero alcohol drinks as well. So in terms of her drinking, she's definitely changed, but I think it's kind of brought us closer together because I'm no longer putting alcohol in front of my relationships. I'm not, when we go out on our date nights, which we now, well, we don't at the moment, but we now do regularly. It's in my calendar every fortnight, and I'm not itching to get back home to break open the wine and just thinking about alcohol all the time. I'm actually present and I'm there. So yeah, I totally think it has. I mean, I don't want to, well, I do want to bring it up but like sober sex as well, that's a thorny topic that doesn't really come up. And for me, I'm going to say a little bit about it because maybe people won't mention it otherwise.
Oh, here we go.
Things I've seen a lot of people. Well, I've seen a lot of people go back to, put your headphones on, Kate.
Well, nice seeing you here, Clemmie, anyway. Thanks for joining.
No, we need to discuss, right? So just briefly, all I want to say is that I hear a lot of people and they kind of forget that has to happen at some point. And then they get to
sex.
Yeah. They get to that bit and think, oh shit, and they think I haven't done it for 20 years without drinking, and it's a serious topic, and then they think, well, I can't do it without drinking. I'm not going into graphic detail. I just want to say that actually you can. It's okay, and if anyone wants to reach out or talk about it, then do.
Right, Simon.
No, you're right.
32.
It is a valid subject. It's just making us all cringe. But
I cringe away. Chapter 32 in my book. Just read that.
I've read it. I've read it.
Say no more. I just wanted to get it out there because it's one of those things. I know a lot of people end up drinking again, and they just don't even think of that on the sort of journey.
It is. I don't want to leave it just there, Simon, though, because I do think there is a bit more to be said in that it is scary at first, isn't it?
It is.
Sex is scary because especially if your first experience was with drink and then every other experience since has, it is like starting again. And I think that's where the trust has to come back into play like it was. It can make you closer. It can be scary, but it can make you much closer.
And also, I think... It's one of those topics as well. And I don't mean to make anyone cringe, obviously, but it's one of those topics that people won't post in a Facebook group about, or most people won't. And we always talk about have support, have accountability, and it's just it's like the elephant in the room kind of thing that often doesn't get mentioned. So I feel it is part of the journey, and it's wrong to ignore that.
Yeah.
So Clemmie, sorry, Kate. So you and Ben, like,
anyway.
No, I'm joking. Hey,
I was going to say there's two things I think that when we were talking about this subject that came up for me, and one is the fear, because I think there's a lot of fear involved in people's relationships. And for ourselves, and if you're sober curious, if you're early days, it's that kind of, the fears are very great around that ability to connect and that ability to be social. So this affects all our relationships. The sex thing is a thing as well. It's like it creeps into all areas. So I think that one of the lovely things is as you go along, like you say, that you kind of sorts the wheat from the chaff, and the people, once you can articulate, once you've worked out who you tell, who you don't, it gets a lot easier, and it's that kind of awkward learning, isn't it, to navigate some of your relationships. The other thing that I go back to in terms of romantic relationships or familial relationships with husbands, wives, partners, etc., is that I think we touched on it before about it kind of being a bit of a quick fix to everything. And when we're parents, it's like like Clemmie said, it's like, blimey, it's like with everything, suddenly everything takes a bit of work and a bit of it being actually how it is. And it's like, well, maybe like we do have to set time aside to have a date night rather than just get drunk and have a shag.
Yeah,
Because actually, maybe we do, or maybe we just have a shag anyway. But you kind of get used to that kind of getting on the same page as well, you know, because I think there's a gender thing as well. So this is like, I haven't even thought about talking about this. I'll be like, oh no, vulnerability hangover afterwards. But, you know, there's that gender issue as well of like what happens to women when we drink, you know, that kind of, I don't know how many of us used it to disconnect, you know, like that's the thing as well. So this is like, you know, a big old topic, and maybe we should do it with girls only at some point.
Oh.
But, you know, I just think it's that. The other thing I was going to say, I'm sorry, I'm really rambling, is that almost like when I look back, I feel like I sold all the fears made me feel like I sold my relationship slightly short, because actually, because booze had become that very important thing, it was like, now it seems like, well, of course we're not going to fall apart just because we took that. We were more than that. You know, of course we were. We've built lives together. We've built houses together. We've had kids together. And there's a little bit of me that goes, oh, that's sad, isn't it? Because then I thought booze was that important to us, you know. So yeah, those are just my sort of initial ramblings on it.
Clemmie, can I ask you a question? When you told your partner that you were going, did you set out to stop drinking for good for a certain amount of time? And what did your partner think to it? Because obviously if he's still drinking, did he like think that you were going to miss out on good times with you, or that it'd change anything?
So, I mean, like everybody, I think I had for months, years, with the huge self-loathing with my hangovers, I talked about, oh, you know, I'm never going to drink again. I'm never going to drink again. So on that day, after a night out, it was another one of those. I knew in myself it was different, I think, but he didn't. He was completely supportive. I mean, like anyone who's been with someone who has got an unhappy relationship with alcohol, he'd had to pick up the pieces for as long as we've been together. And as much as we'd had so much fun drinking together, we were definitely party people together. For him, after we'd had a night out, to have to talk me through the huge paranoia, I think he was just relieved to see an end of that. And then as it became obvious that this was more than just a few weeks off, he's been my massive champion. Although one annoying thing he does, which I have really had to teach him not to do, is if we're meeting new people on a night out, it'll get to a certain point and go, oh, by the way, guys, Clemmie doesn't drink. I was like, you don't need to do that. Like, if I'm not hiding it, but I'm also not going to make it the first thing that I say, because I just don't want to put that on anybody. I don't need to. And then it silences the room, and you know, everyone's going, what's her story, how much in recovery she is, and also I just feel like if you're in yourself, you're feeling quite brave and like, oh, I'm actually holding this together, I'm not being boring, and then for someone to go, yeah, this one here doesn't drink, and
maybe it's because he's proud.
Yeah, I think
maybe that. And I think because he wants to out it so that no one else is asking questions.
Yeah, or defend you in some way.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think it comes from a bad place, but it always comes after a few drinks. So it's like, shut up. So that's a weird thing that we have definitely had to navigate, because he can't see why I find that difficult, but I do.
Yeah,
I get it.
My daughter went to, well, when they were going to school, and she told her teachers, they were talking about podcasts, and she said, oh, my mum does a podcast. And she was like, oh, brilliant, what about? And she said, oh, about being sober. And Olivia, the teacher, said to her, oh, that must have been really difficult for her. And like Olivia had told her, because she was so proud of it. and you know, I don't class myself as an alcoholic. It's never how I've spoken about it with the children. It's just not, I've stopped drinking, I've gone sober, and we're all really proud about it. But I just think, so and my son will do it as well, he'll say to his mates, like, my mum doesn't drink, you know, but it's in a really kind of proud way, like you said. But it's funny to see people's reactions, isn't it? And everybody reacts differently. Like, she came home that day and she was like, I'm sure my
Has Lisa frozen for everybody?
Yeah, she's frozen.
Frozen, Lisa.
We'll never know what her daughter said.
We never know what Olivia said.
We'll do fill in the blanks.
Oh.
was it a funny face?
No, it was okay.
No, you're all right.
Where was I?
Don't know, it's gone. Moment's gone, Lisa.
I just
Well,
wanted
it's better than the other night.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on a couple of things, like that Clemmie said about sort of friendships. Something was quite interesting about what I experienced was that actually people that I've kept friends, you know, I have my like friends from childhood, those friends that you take for so many years with you without really any conscious thought. You just kind of bring all these people with you into your adult life. And actually that group was kind of the hardest. Some of them, those besties were great, but those kind of like the people you just got, you know, you'd been getting drunk with since you were 14, that kind of like you stay in that same mentality together. And actually the ones that have been, you know, much easier and it's been much more positive has been like friends that I've made at uni or friends that I sort of made from work, and those kind of add-ins that I've had over the years that have kind of like come in and we've had different experiences together rather than it just being about kind of getting
But do
trapped.
you think that is because with your school friends, and I'm only speaking of myself, you're not really, don't, as adults you might not pick each other, right? You're
No, exactly.
based purely on the fact that you went to school together when you were essentially children, and so alcohol is a way of kind of bridging who you
exactly. And then when, you know, and so I think a lot of people, you know, it's quite a good thing to kind of signal to people when you're looking at your relationships and like, why isn't this working? It's like, well, how has this like relationship evolved? Has it evolved, you know, or are you still in the same behavior you were when you were, because we were, I mean, it was like we're all back together, we're in this little bubble, and it was like, yeah, you know, like nothing matters, even though now we've got kids, we're still doing exactly the same thing we were doing when we were 18, 19, 21, you know, and in very kind of irresponsible ways. And it was a real shift for me, and it was really quite painful to understand that actually behind that it was quite toxic, and there wasn't really that kind of longevity because we hadn't evolved together. And I've found that, you know, people that I've met, and that's just a check for other people really, it's like how does that work for you? Like, does that resonate with anyone to be like, okay, actually some of these is working, and why? And some of it it feels like I'm dragging, and why is that? And you know, what's behind that?
I think with life you really if friendship feels hard, it's not worth it, you know. Who's got the capacity to have to really work at friendships? It should be really easy, shouldn't it? I'm not saying of course you should put time in, but if it doesn't come easy.
And I think there's also that, like, I mean, certainly, you know, in the key relationships in your life, like, you know, that you're not, well, some relationships you do let go even if they're family, you know, but and some relationships don't last through sobriety, but, you know, there needs to be a kind of a grace period, you know, like a period of transition, because certainly, you know, at the beginning I wasn't giving enough information to my family for them to understand. So I was like coming in and I'm sober and like, you just, you know, why aren't you understanding me? But I wasn't explaining like the mental health story or, you know, anything else. So they were kind of trying to put together this picture of it. And the same thing with my husband, you know, we'd been those party people together that had been a massive part of our relationship. So, you know, we've got through it now, but it was those continuous little tweaks to it. It's like, you know, like, and how much, you know, and it was really scary to be like I can deal with tipsy, but I can't deal with drunk. And it's like, so it's, you know, we've got to work at this together and kind of, and keep those conversations going and in a very kind of open and caring, not non-confrontational way. So not in the middle of when they're a bit drunk, you know, the next day I go, that just, it felt difficult for me, you know. And it's a mutual respect thing. It's like, I respect what you do, you know, if you want to drink, that's absolutely fine, but in our mutual space together, we both need to feel okay about it. And, you know, and so those kind of boundaries for people, it's really, you know, difficult to find your voice and talk about it, but it, you know, your sobriety is super, super important. And so, you know, are you having the right conversations? Are you really like saying what you need from them? You know, are you being honest and true about it? Because it might be a case that they just don't know where your line is, you know. They're just like,
do you know what, it's funny, Mandy,
you know.
Mandy, you said what you did on that post today. I was thinking about it, about boundaries and that. And yesterday, we live in this really nice cul-de-sac and everyone was out celebrating VE Day. And I said to them, do you want me to get your Prosecco and that? So I brought that out. But there's a few people sitting there drinking. And after a while, I just know now. And I don't mind having a drink. But when it gets to a certain level, it starts to irritate me. And I'm being honest, you know. And then there was a point that she was a bit provocative with me in the conversation, and I just went in because I thought, you know what, I don't want this to happen now. I don't want it to get out of hand. I don't want her to say the wrong thing. It's better. And I went in and I ran a bath and went upstairs, and I was peeking through the little skylight, like seeing what was going on. And but I was, you know, it was valuable to me what you said today, because I thought actually it's probably better to do that. You know what we were saying, Simon, about when you go to a party and everyone's like, wee, and then all of a sudden you think, you know what, I'm a bit fed up with this now.
Yeah. Gonna go.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna
go.
But I really feel that's the job that I have to do. You know, I don't want to ruin anyone else's fun, and there is just that moment. And rather than get cross with people for doing what they're doing, get to bed, have a chapter of your book, and wake up feeling smart.
Can I pick up something you said right at the beginning, Dave? And it's just made me think, as we're mulling this through, about that relationship with yourself and how all of our things come back to those boundaries and those, knowing when, like knowing our, so if we had a relationship with alcohol, right, didn't we? That's the kind of weird thing, is that I think this sort of changed how I saw, and my route into sobriety was that whole, like, once it stopped being about, are you an alcoholic or are you a normal drinker, and all of that received thinking that was back then. And I think it was Lucy Rocker's book, Sober Revolution, where it was the first time I read about it being like a relationship, and the fact that your feelings were entwined with it, and you had rituals with it, and you had special times with it, and you comforted with it, and it was like that emotional sort of stuff with it. So I think that I'm really rambling today. I'm really sorry.
You're not okay.
Because you got a fur coat on.
It's true what Kate's saying though. Like, I was in love with it. You know, it's so true. And I felt like I broke up with it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I felt like I broke up with it. You know, and I was in love with it.
You've got, me too. And it was a love-hate destructive relationship.
It was,
and then it was like, okay, so all of this, in a sense, all of our stories, everything that we talk about, we're social animals. It's all about how we relate to other people. And it's all about how we relate to ourselves. And what the beautiful thing about is getting sober is that you can actually start to hear what you need, hear yourself, and start that fundamental relationship with yourself, which then gives you the boundaries, which then helps you articulate so that you can tell the right people, that then gives you that feedback that says, oh, hang on, you're not feeling so good, I'm going to move away from you instead of drinking over it. So, you know, I don't know what my point was.
It was beautifully put.
Yeah.
I think it was about a toxic relationship, and it's like it's a toxic substance, and it's like a toxic relationship, and really it feels like a breakup at the end, because it did for me. I even wrote a breakup letter, which is on my website, of when I split with Mrs. Shiraz.
There's a beautiful young man lurking in the corner called William, who hasn't told us. He's looking even younger.
I bet you've not been coming by a while, have you? Beautiful young man.
Yeah, come on, beautiful young man. What do you have to say about this?
He's 73, Clemmie. Look.
I was hoping to just be quiet. I'm not the man to be giving relationship advice. I suppose it kind of, my limited experience of it, it often works out two ways when people quit drinking, because drinking makes you tired and argumentative and your emotions tend to go a bit haywire. It makes you difficult to live with. So a lot of people find that they might be in a relationship and it's not going particularly well, and when they cut drinking out, actually that's the thing that makes it work better. But I think it can work the other way as well. I think if you've got two people and their bond is drinking, so you meet someone, and it happens quite a lot, you meet someone, you're drinking with them, and all you really do is go out drinking, out for meals, but whatever you do with them, you're drinking. And then either one or even both of them quits, and suddenly that link is no longer there. And then the relationship goes through a change, and either you find that you have got enough in common and you've got enough feelings for each other that it continues. But I think sometimes that isn't the case. Sometimes you can go into a relationship and alcohol is the only thing. And without that, without it constantly papering over the cracks, you take it away and the cracks are there and you can't hide from them. So I think there's a sort of weird dynamic in that it can go one of two ways with it. That's my tuppence worth anyway.
Alex.
Yeah, please, sir, can I say something?
You may.
Sat there with my hand up. That was right. Yeah, I think I met my husband as William's just described. We met drinking. That's what we did. We went out. We got drunk. Even when we had kids, we used to have. It might kill me for saying this, but you know what? I've never been bothered before, so here goes. We used to have YouTube nights, and we just literally put. Well, it was my playlist. I thought he enjoyed them. I don't think he did. Playlist on. I used to get pissed. Got tipsy, I got pissed, and I actually turned into some sort of exotic erotic dancer. But there you go. But I thought I had all these moves. I thought I was sexy. I thought all these things. I clearly wasn't, because when I gave up, he just said, "Oh, thank God we have to do those." So I guess what I'm saying is as well, my drinking made me make so many poor choices, and not only in this relationship, but in friendships, with my children, with my family, with my ex, so many poor choices. And it turned me into a lying cow who was unreliable, who didn't show up, either showing up for my children or showing up in terms of, standing people up. Like, I remember one time going out, and I remember more than one, but one time going out and supposedly back at tea time and didn't come home till 5 the next morning. And I expected that to do no damage. When I was challenged about that, and it was like, you were supposed to be home at tea time and you're strolling at 5 in the morning. And I was like, oh, shut up. So what? I had a good time. I just got carried away. I couldn't see anything outside of my own poor decision-making bubble and how amazing that alcohol was. And inside, I was actually dying. I knew I'd done wrong, but I was covering up for myself. I was lying, So getting sober, yes, although I was drinking and partying, clearly alone, but thought my husband was involved, actually getting sober allowed us to build a lot of bridges that would have, if it had carried on, they would have led to the damage that William's just talked about. We would have separated, because he's nothing like me. He's not the drinker I was at all, and he'll quite happily sit in my company with a Diet Coke and eat a takeaway. I will now, but I didn't for years and years. And it was only getting sober that gave me that kind of clarity to go, you know what? I've been the problem in my relationship because I've been a drinker. There you go. Now you know I'm a dancer as well, guys.
Are you going to put it on the Sober Sessions Facebook group after?
Absolutely not. Never in a million years will any living eye see that again.
Clemmie, how's your relationship with your kids now? Has it changed?
With me?
Clemmie.
So I'm really grateful for the fact, although it's hard work, that I have my kids pretty close together. So they're currently 7, 5 and 2. And so actually, from becoming a mum to now, I was pregnant or breastfeeding for a large chunk of that. So I wasn't drinking that much during motherhood. I do think back to a few times, like just sitting, reading them a bedtime story and not really being able to read the words properly. And that the bits that make me feel sad is thinking that I was being a fun mum because I'd had a glass of wine and therefore would dance around the kitchen with them, which I will now do, but I hate that was alcohol doing that. So I feel really relieved is the short answer, that actually alcohol didn't weave into motherhood very much. And I feel really glad that that is the case. But then I'm just working on a project actually about how to talk to children about a load of difficult subjects, but including alcohol. And I really struggle with knowing how to do that, actually, because I don't want to say you must never drink. Of course I don't want that, but I also want to give them a really realistic picture.
Yeah,
I think there's a big word in all of this when talking to friends, kids, like Clemmie was saying there, is vulnerability. I think rather, I say this all the time, but kids do what we do, not what we tell them to do, and leading by example. I've been on an amazing journey with my son. He's faced some challenges around his gender, his sexuality, and God, if I was still drinking, I dread to think what would happen. But we've been on a journey together, and it's been absolutely amazing. And I was really vulnerable with him. I opened up to him. I told him, I get emotional when I talk about this, but I told him, what I was doing, why I was quitting, everything. And he's been amazing. I have to pause for a minute, actually, because it just chokes me up every time. But vulnerability.
Simon, how old is he?
15 now.
Okay.
I'm trying to convince him to do a YouTube video with me. My dad did one. I've seen my dad's on, actually. And like my dad and I, that's another one as well. We, as probably you guys know, we didn't talk for 6 years. We had a stupid argument that escalated, probably from my mental health state, how much I was drinking. It definitely played a part in it. And last year we reconnected. We both bizarrely messaged each other on the same day, but didn't know each other had messaged. It was on my birthday. And we've reconnected, and now he's sober curious, and he's watching this live as he does every week.
Hi, Michael.
Don't make me say bloody chaps again.
and Clemmie is selling pictures for £5 of Simon with hair.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
He's cashing in on the merchandise.
Sounds like money well spent.
Something to that as well, because something else that's worth saying is, Lisa and I'll say this because obviously we've been for 11, so we met having never drank, but we were children, as you touched upon earlier, Clemmie. So, and our relationship has survived the test of time all through our drinking years. But I'm sure Lisa will agree with me. Since I got sober last year, she's a year ahead of me. We have got to know each other. I don't think we knew each other for 30 years, did we, Lisa? I have found things that really irritate me about Lisa. She's found things that really irritate me. And use that face. We have, haven't we? We found things about each other that we're like, oh my God, I didn't know you felt like that, or I didn't know you had that habit, or I didn't know that you did things this way. We're both...
I thought we got on really well, like loads better.
She's horrible to me sometimes. No, we both honestly, we do get on well. We get on better than ever. But there's things about each other we just didn't know. And I can't believe we were friends for all those years. But all our conversations were skin deep. They were just like, well, surface level deep. There was no real substance to getting to know the real each other. We knew each other's deepest and darkest secrets. We didn't know each other's personality, did we?
You think that's an analogy for being sober full stop? At weddings, I'd always find the drunkest person in the room, and now you kind of find the quiet person and actually sit and have a chat. Someone who wouldn't have even registered because they're not in the middle of the dance floor making a tit of themselves. And you bother to get to know people, and then you can go, oh, actually I did meet this person. It's such a lovely thing.
It's so nice to go home afterwards and feel like you've actually not only spoken to people, but you've listened to people. Like, I remember going out for the first time and coming home thinking, oh, I was such a good listener today. Because I was always like, yeah, me. So yeah, it does make such a difference. Can I put a bit of a perspective on this? Because I think that everybody on here is married, are they? And I know there's going to be people watching that aren't necessarily married and getting the support from their other halves. Now, my relationship's really confusing, and I was dreading this talk. But just to put it a little bit in perspective, that when I stopped drinking, my husband was a very heavy drinker, and he does class himself as an alcoholic. He's been sober 12 months now. But when I stopped drinking, he didn't want to stop drinking. He did stop drinking for a while for me, but then went back to drinking. So when I was just within my first 100 days, we split up and he moved out. And I know, and I see it on a lot of the Facebook groups, that this happens to a lot of people. They either realise, like you said, William, before, that sometimes that's all it was based on, and if the cracks are there when you get sober, it can be really difficult to kind of like, I realised, I was like, oh, and he don't watch these, he never watches them, so it'll be my luck now, we'll watch this one, right? But I was like, I don't really like you. And I didn't, and we didn't have anything in common. We met in a kitchen somewhere, drunk. I married him drunk. I got like everything that we did was drinking. So when we stopped, and he absolutely hated that I'd stopped drinking, and it was really, really difficult. We don't live together now. It's still really, really complicated. But when we did first split up, I tried a bit of sober dating as well, so that's why I wanted to put a little bit of difference. And I read somewhere that you shouldn't really date in your first, I think it was Catherine Gray actually, The Unexpected Joy, she recommended that you shouldn't really date in the first 12 months, and I just want to back her up on that, because it's a really stupid idea. Because just because you're sober doesn't necessarily mean you make good decisions all the time. But I think I kind of did it, looking back, as a bit of an experiment. Now, this sounds really bad, but I started dating my electrician, right? And but when he asked me out, like, we'd go for walks, and I just remember every time thinking, oh, it'll be the first time I've done this sober. Oh, it'll be the first time I've done this sober. And like, even so much as a kiss, it'd be like, oh, I've not done this sober before. And then, as we were talking about sober sex before, so I kind of saw it all as it didn't work out anyway, long story short, but I just wanted to put it out there to anybody that is watching, that if you don't have supportive people, you're all right on your own as well. I think working on your relationship with yourself, that's what I would get into, you know, like learning to like yourself and be kind to yourself, and before you start worrying about relationships like that.
Yeah, can I
Mandy.
just to back up that, you know, it's sort of when talking about boundaries and stuff. I mean, I've been on this sober journey for nearly 8 years. You know, I've been sober nearly 3 years continuously, you know, and there's no way, like, there's so many sort of things that are not okay now that needed to be sorted out, in terms of friendships, in terms of people that were surrounding me, in terms of my relationship with my husband, and what was okay behavior. You know, like, I'm an insomniac, but like, he'd drink and then I'd go and sleep on the sofa, you know, and like not sleep and things like that, you know. So and now it's like, no, if you're gonna like get on it, then you take the sofa and I take the bed. But that was huge for me, to be able to find the confidence in myself to be like, actually, like, that's not cool, like, I'm here too, and I don't have to sort of step around you all the time. And you know, whatever the situation, whether you split up or not, like, the most central thing is that relationship with yourself. And you know, and that's the thing that's tough. It's tough to sit with yourself and sit with all the decisions that you've made, and to sit with the relationship and where it is, and you know, and all those things. And that's why it's so important. Like, it's not selfish to concentrate on you and really put yourself, you know, the focus on you. And yeah, you want, it's tough, because you're kind of sort of sidestepping around everyone, not trying to upset them because you're sober, and it's like, you know, awkward, and it, you know, it's ruining people's fun, and you know, and so you're being really careful all the time to sort of like, you know, not take up too much space with your sobriety, but at the same time you're the one that needs support. So it's a really, really hard thing, and that's why, like, Kate and I will always say, like, community is key. You know, get on a sober forum, find your like sober tribe, you know, one person, a group of people, whatever it is, because those are those people that are going to support you no matter what. And through that transition, you know, you don't have to be alone, and you can do it, but you need people that are going to tell you and reaffirm that, like, no, it's okay, like, you're going to be all right. And that's where, like, the sober community is absolutely key, you know. So
it's really interesting, man, you say that about connecting with yourself, because when I first gave up drinking, I felt really guilty about what I put her through. But
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to know that you do need that bit of space in the healing time. And Em used to say to me, "Oh God, you're really quiet. You're not yourself." And I said, "Well, I'm not myself because I don't know who I am." Like learning about yourself. And I used to say, "I'm trying to connect with myself, man." You know, be like some hippie. But it was really important for me because I had all my emotions I've blocked out for 40 odd years. And all of a sudden they're coming at me at all angles and the kids were jumping all over me, swinging from the chandeliers and that. And I was like, how do I process this? I don't know how to deal with this mentally, you know. And that in itself has been a real tough journey for me to connect with the reality and the responsibility, because I used to get rid of responsibility by having a drink all the time. You know, I think, it's all right. I'll just have a few more and that, you know. And it's the first year, Clemmie, like it's such a, was it you, Kate, saying that in the second year it went so quick, the second year of sobriety, because you're doing things, you're doing things second time round, you know, like now I've done Emma's birthday second time round and this second time round, it's almost a lot easier, you know.
Oh yeah.
Does anyone have any experience of working relationships? Like,
oh, here we go. Hello, mister.
William. Oh.
We're talking about you.
So like, you know your relationships in the workplace, because that's something Lisa and I are obviously interested in, is the workplaces. And a lot of people's fear comes from missing out on things like Christmas parties and work stews and lunchtime drinks and after work Friday drinks and so on like that. So I mean, I know William, you're in the corporate world right now. Like, how do you cope with those kind of feelings, or how did you cope when you first went sober?
So I probably didn't do it the best way, to be honest, when I first started, because I sort of just avoided going out for quite a bit. But I have to say, I've found, so in the city at the moment, so I started there about 15 years ago, and it's very different. It's noticeably different now. Like 15 years ago, you know, Friday, any kind of business lunch, you were just drinking all afternoon and right into the evening. Whereas now it's just not the done thing to drink at lunchtime. So when we have business lunches, probably half people don't drink at all. And the ones that do drink have, you know, like in nice restaurants, when you get like a thimble full of red wine in a massive glass, they have that and that's it. So to an all intents and purposes, people don't really drink. I don't tend to do the evening things anyway, because I've got a young family at home, and to be honest, it just doesn't really fit in from that perspective. The Christmas parties and things I just go to, and to be honest, I prefer it, because you're not worrying about saying something stupid because you're not drinking. And then I mentioned it before in one of the previous talks we were having, it's just so much easier to leave, because you're kind of walking around mingling with different groups, and then you leave one group and just walk out the door and no one even notices. And the last time I did this, my boss said, "Oh, what time did you leave?" And I was, "Oh, what time did you leave?" He said, "Oh, I left about midnight." And I was, "Oh, yeah, I must have been just a bit before you then." And I'd left at like 9 or something. They don't know. People are drinking. And also I kind of find when you're sober, you can have like a fairly decent conversation with someone. I generally find if there's food, you've got around about 3 hours before the alcohol starts to get noticeable. And then you're in a situation where people are standing too close and repeating themselves and thinking they're really funny when they're not, and it's just not pleasant. So I kind of just head for the hills at that point.
3 hours? Who were you drinking with?
Not with you, Dave, eh?
No, half an hour.
You know, with work, Alex, what you were just saying, I know Catherine has said it on the group, and I know Kath actually, and she's just said, listening to colleagues about drinking winds her up, and she really struggles going into work and everybody just constantly talking about alcohol all the time. And I think sometimes you can feel a little bit left out, can't you, of the conversation, and because it doesn't interest you anymore. You don't. And if you're anything like me, I just want to say, well, actually, did you know?
And they do.
Yeah, but I suppose when you're working with these people all the time, it must be quite difficult.
It's a very different relationship to a friendship or anything else, isn't it? Because I mean, I'm sure everybody's the same. Well, you know, I kind of just say it as it is, but not at work. You know, at work, I do actually have a professional reserve side, believe it or not, and I put it on at work. So I wouldn't necessarily go to people at work, oh, you know what, I got sober, because I don't want the questions around, well, what did you do that for? Or, you know, and that's just my personal choice, that I wouldn't have told them that I didn't drink, because I didn't think they needed to know. But yeah, every Monday it'd be like, oh, what did you do this weekend? Did you go out? You know, where were you? Who did you go out with? Did you club? Did you do that? Whatever. And it's all drink or socially around drink, everything. So I think
I felt this similar, because I haven't actually sort of worked in an office for a few years now, so about 4 years I think was the last time. And but you know, the school gates felt very much like that. Like you just couldn't, you know, move for the wine lingo, you know, all the time. And actually that was my sort of biggest fear, and my before I sort of came outside of sober forums, you know, and started the Love Sober as the blog, which it was, you know, before. That's who I was scared of. I was scared of the other mums at school judging me, and I did get judged, and I did get left out. I have to say, I now have a really nice group of mum friends, and I don't give a fuck. And actually, they're all cows.
Get the box out, Dave.
Though, and interestingly, like, there is another little backstory to that, in that I had this was one of the reasons why, you know, the motherhood drinking thing is of such interest to sort of Mandy and I, because that sort of maternal role and the sort of escalation around that and mental health. But my son, who's neurodiverse, we didn't know at that time, so we wouldn't get invited to things, and he wouldn't, but yet they'd want me to get pissed with them. And it was this really weird sort of like dynamic of, but I really wanted it. It was like I needed someone. We were in a new town. I was like, well, who else am I going to meet? I'm not meeting, you know, people at work. Like, this was the kind of way into not being really, really lonely. So it was very loaded. And I can remember the first few times I went on a mum's night with them and didn't drink, and it sort of, I sort of put on a bit of I sort of went into it going, yeah, I'm doing this amazing thing. Inside I was like, oh my God, I'm just dying. But I just wasn't going to let them know, you know. And I think in hindsight that actually was right. And we don't keep in touch now. But, you know, I've got the proper ones, you know, like the sorting hat, the alcohol sorting hat.
Yeah, you found them.
They didn't go in Slytherin, they just got expelled.
You know, I was telling Lisa this a couple of weeks back. My little boy, my youngest, is only 4, so we're at nursery stage at the moment. And at the school, they have like the summer fair, the Christmas fair, all these different things. And it's on one day they have to bring something in, and then they can wear whatever they want. And it was bring a bottle in. So I'm thinking, and I would have thought this even when I was drinking.
Clemmie's face. What?
Yeah, no, bring a bottle in. So all the kids had to take a bottle for the stall, right? Or it might be bring
hours.
Yeah, or it might be you drink on the plays and everything. Bring a bottle, bring a box of chocolates, and it was whatever. So anyway, this one day it was bring a bottle. So I turned up with a bottle of Coke, and he walked in and put it on the table, and I swear to God it was the only soft drink. Kids were walking in with vodka, with wine, and I couldn't help myself because I've turned into this. No, I haven't turned into. I've always been.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, well, I just said to the teacher, I said, why is that okay? I said to the teacher, why is that okay? Why are you putting those bottles of alcohol on the table in the classroom in front of my 4, who was then 3, my 3-year-old, and all these? And one of the mums, and I swear to God this, and I'm not judging her.
Oh, yeah.
This just shows the mentality we're in. The little boy was 3, and he passed it, and she said to him, the mum, tell Mrs. Shepherd what this is called. And the teacher said, what is it? Is it fizzy drink? The teacher said, trying to take in. He was going, no. And the mummy went, Prosecco. And she was teaching him to say the word, and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with our society? Not the mum. I'm not judging the mum. Just the mentality that we are in as a society now. That we're normalising this behaviour from our 3 and 4-year-olds. And I just found it shocking.
You know what, though, Alex? It is that is the society, you know. It is like, I feel really bad saying this, but my mum taught my son how to make the perfect gin and tonic. Like, that was, you know, rub the lemon round the rim, blah, blah. And now he's like 17 and he knows how to open a bottle of champagne and make the perfect gin and tonic, because it was our normal. And it's really hard, isn't it, for us to not come across like we're judging, because we're not, but we had been sold into it as well,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that's where the problem with those kind of relationships can come from, because we're not judging, we're just out of the trap.
Yeah, it's like once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. So it becomes very uncomfortable when, even if you were, you know, I was at one time on that mummy wine side, you know, and I've still got pictures of me and my mates, you know, cheersing with a glass of wine, you know, at the end of the day, like in bed kind of thing. And then you've had this kind of like awakening of like, shit, actually, this is not cool, and I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't want my kids to be around it, and, you know, this is important to me. It's very hard to go back into those relationships and sort of navigate that. And I do think there is that thing about school mums, and it's kind of like make do friendships, you know, and what I've kind of learned is like, I'd actually rather have less friends but better friends than have these kind of make do friendships. And actually, as you said about Clemmie, when you're at the wedding, you know, actually there will be other people in the playground, you know, and there will be interesting people that you've probably just ignored or bypassed because they weren't the like wine mummies, you know. And then you're kind of like, right, you rock up and it's like, actually, I don't know who is, you know, so-and-so's mum, and have a chat with them. Or, you know, look at crafts or look at hobbies that you're interested in, and it's like, try and make friends that way and be like, oh shit, she does, you know, painting, so cool, like I'll try and get in that way. Or she's into music, or try and find other angles to like make connections with where alcohol isn't the focus, because those were those toxic friendships for me. And it was like, well, actually I don't really need them. And like, and also I'm tired, you know, and I've got a job and I've got kids and I've got a husband and
I've got
and I've got other things to do. And it's like, well, I really don't mind, you know, like it's very, very rare now that I'll make a wrong decision, like, you know, and I've got really good at saying no, you know, and embracing the JOMO, just been like, PJs on, like I did it, like it's a real thing for a people pleaser to be like, no, I'm not coming, you know, because oh my god, like I'm never going to be invited again, like. But, you know, you learn over time that it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? If they're dicks, they're not going to want to be your friend anymore. And you'll have learned a lesson that, like, thank God for that, you know. Like Laura Willoughby says, she says, being sober is the best kind of dickhead filter, you know. It's just like you get to see what people's are really about. But it can feel lonely, you know. And again, I'll come back to this, is like, there'll always be someone on a sober community that will be there to like pep you up and support you, you know, so you're not alone.
Can I say something on that? The sober community. Fuck you. Come on, Em. We need a good fight. Like when I first went on Soberistas, and this is the importance of sober friendships. There's a bit of a digression, because have we told the story about how Mandy and I knew each other before? Well, we didn't know each other. We lived on the next street to each other in Brighton and had no idea, and met on a sober forum once she moved to France. We were literally like, how weird is that? Anyway, so the first year I went on Soberistas, and I met a woman called Faye, and we ended up as pen pals, email pen pals for the whole of that year. We wrote to each other every day, and basically I got through it that first year because of Soberistas and because of her. And it's just amazing, sort of, if you really engage with sober communities, and there's so many of them, and like have a think about, like, if you really like the written word, if you're a good reader, and like, I mean, an avid reader kind of thing, and you've got that time. I mean, it was perfect for me at that point, because my husband was working in London, and I was stuck at home, not knowing anyone, with the 2 children when they were really little, and so I was very lonely in the evening, and that was when I used to like, you know, drink, and then I think, oh shit, I've drunk a bottle of wine and he's not even home yet because he didn't get home till 11. So I sat on a blogging forum writing to people, and that was that recovery that year. It was like, literally, it gave me something to do. And it was I used to get on there and have a laugh with people as well. So if you are feeling lonely and you are going through that transition period of like, where can I find some new relationships, like find the one that fits for you. And it could be like that Facebook, that quick fire thing, it could be Instagram, it could be one of the more sort of blogging forums and stuff, and you can really start to really build your relationships. And I think all of us have done that. I think all of us can relate to like the kind of joy of realizing that we're making friends, and that is, you know, this kind of really does, as well as alcohol really providing that focus maybe for friendships before. Sobriety is a great one because we can chat about it, can't we? And we all care, we've all been through something, so that's a real common ground. So I'd really sort of say, you know, really work those and come out of your comfort zone maybe a bit with that and find the one that fits for you.
Can I just go back to the point about the school pickups? Because I saw this from a different angle, and I used to do the school run like every day, and I was that one dad who was there when it was all the mums in their little cliquey groups, and it was I felt like I was outside the bubble, and I was sort of observing it from almost like an outsider. And I did make a few friends there, and I can't remember who said it, but like that they would invite me to some of the drinks things, but they weren't really friends. You know, one of them would have a big party and want everyone to come, and I'd get invited along to those sort of things. And the best thing was when primary school finished and he went to senior school, and you can just sit in the car and wait. It was wonderful. So it does come to an end. And the other thing I just quickly wanted to say was, I actually asked my son yesterday, I said, how many of your friends drink? So he's 15. He said, not many. He said, I know a few of them have tried it, but not many. He said, they all vape and smoke weed. And and I genuinely think a lot of youngsters, alcohol is becoming the parents' drug. I mean, I don't know. I'm not scientific facts. William might know a bit about that, but it's interesting how there seems to be this transition with vaping.
I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to go because I've got to go and do some parenting.
It's lovely to see you, Clemmie. So
Sorry,
just quickly, Clemmie, what are you doing tomorrow?
I don't know. It's such a weird one, isn't it? Because it's so huge for me, but it is only huge for me. And so, I mean, also our options are quite limited at the moment, you know. So probably just going for 1 hour's walk. Anyone thought of doing that? I don't know. Just going to sit with how it feels, I think. And
well, we'll be sending you all our love tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be nice if everybody could send you some messages over in
thank you.
Soberversary, everyone.
Yeah, congratulations.
Realise, do they? But it's a really big deal.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Well done.
12 months is amazing. You should be really proud of yourself. I think it's just
happy Soberversary.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
See you later.
Is this a good time for the rest of us to take some questions from Facebook then?
Yeah.
Okay.
so I have one here.
Right.
I have a question: how to talk to my new partner of over 2 months about sobriety. He's known I'm sober since day one and said it doesn't bother him at all. The other day he said we should get drunk together just once. It would be such fun. Any advice?
I think
Simon?
just be really, really honest. And I suppose when I was talking about dating before, I've had that said to me, and I think it's just something like, I think I replied with like, you really don't want to see me drunk. That was it. Do you know what I mean? I think you've got to put your sobriety first, and without sounding too harsh, you know what I mean? If he's going to want to be with you, you're going to continue being sober, and if that's a problem, then
he's got to respect the bound. You know, he's got to respect your boundaries. If you were a vegan, would he be asking you to go out and eat steak with him? You know,
probably.
like, why is he doing
Alex's
that?
husband.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else have we got? Hey, I stopped drinking. It's 30 days for me now. My wife doesn't drink, and since I stopped, I feel so good every day. and I'm working on food, diet and workout coaching program. Brilliant. Question, in the middle of Alcohol Explained, I'm newly sober, and when I get cravings, any pointers to stop the cycle of them?
So that goes back to the old thing about the easiest way of doing that is just play it forward. And when I say play it forward, obviously the obvious one is to think about the next day when you wake up feeling rubbish. But I always say play it forward a lot sooner than that. So if you're thinking about having an alcoholic drink, just remember, when we think about drinking, we fantasize about it. So we don't think about the reality of it. We think about the fantasy, and we build up this sort of strange idea of how brilliant it will be. And actually it isn't. So just think about the reality of having a drink. It would be some sugary, foul tasting poison that leaves you feeling slightly dulled and then gives you a feeling of anxiety, which you either then sit through, or you have another alcoholic drink to get rid of it, and the whole spiral starts again. That's the thing you need to stick with. And then think about, again, for me, the biggest thing with it was less the next day and waking up in the middle of the night, just lying there awake, worrying for hours. And I just hated that so much. And I so love the feeling of waking up, having had a good night's sleep. So I would just stick with that if I was you. That's the easiest way of doing it. But just remember that when you start fantasizing about drinking, it is a fantasy. Think of all the millions of drinks you've had throughout your life, where you were probably too drunk to notice them, or maybe you were really introspective, or you were getting in a bad mood, or you were just sat in front of the TV, not really taking anything in. When you think about drinking, you don't think about those that are the vast majority. You think about those one or two, you know, the one you had on Christmas morning, or the one you have first thing when you get on holiday, all the rest of it. Just be realistic about it is the best way.
That's good.
Brilliant.
Can I say something about that as well? Like when you were saying that, William, I was just thinking about how that really relates to what we were talking about relationships and alcohol as well, and how much of it is fantasy, how much is in the story about that we give it. The odd night that it was just so amazing and so passionate. You know, not all the arguments, maybe the drunken fuel arguments where you just kind of papered over the cracks and then just it all came out really wrong and then you didn't speak to each other for 2 days. You know, you always fantasize about, oh, do you remember that great night? And, you know, for every like great night, which would have been great anyway,
yeah,
but we don't know that, we attribute all of it to alcohol, and so much of it relates to what we do with our relationships with alcohol. So just wanted to pull that one out.
Yeah, the only arguments I ever have with my husband have been about alcohol. We don't argue other than that.
Ditto. Yeah.
Okay, another question. I'm turning 40 in June and I have not told my friends and family that I quit drinking. I'm working on my confidence and sobriety, but I'm petrified because all my friends want to throw me a big party for my 40th and I'm scared shitless because I don't want to drink. This is a huge one. There's loads of 40th coming up.
Oh.
It's my birthday coming up as well, right? And it's my
She's
first...
been waiting to get that in. I am. To know.
It's my first birthday sober, which is what I wanted to put out. Okay, so at my birthday, and anyone who knows me will say, it's always been about, in fact, my life's mostly about me, but my birthdays are really about me. And I have thrown big, wild parties for random years. Forget 40, I mean, I did have a big 40th, but I also had a 41st. I also had a 39th. You know, I've always had big parties. So I was thinking about my next birthday, and the people who wanted to throw me a party before I went into lockdown actually are the people who want to drink. Not the party wouldn't have really been about throwing me a surprise party. It's about that fantasy and that idea of all being together and getting drunk together. So Lisa had her 40th. She had a brunch and it was the most beautiful sober brunch ever. And honestly, if I wasn't in lockdown now, it's that kind of thing that I would do. I think you've got to think about what you want on your 40th. What would be your reasons for wanting a party? If that is because you want to gather your friends around and celebrate your 40th, then do it on your terms. Be brave, be strong. You don't have to even have alcohol there if you want. Lisa didn't. She didn't have anyone drinking alcohol because she organised it in her way at a time when people wouldn't have chosen to drink alcohol anyway. So I think you need to think carefully about what it is you want. If you do want the big night party, plan ahead. phone the venue, make sure that you take your alcohol-free drinks that you're going to enjoy, make sure you've got a backup plan, make sure you've got somebody you can get on the phone if you need to do, and just have a really clear plan. And I think what Simon talked about, I think it was last week, about planning ahead and writing down what you think the visualization of that birthday party should look like will really, really help in this instance. It's your party, your 40th, and you have a right to celebrate it however you want. And your friends will respect that. Your real friends will absolutely respect that. And they will.
You've just got to be brave, haven't you, I think, with that. I know when I did my 40th, people was a bit like, what, you're not having a party? And I could have thought of nothing worse at all. And like Alex said, it was so lovely.
It was gorgeous.
Like as a brunch, and then we had the choice of going for a walk, and you can say to them people, look, after brunch, if you want to go and have a drink, then please do, you know, go and enjoy yourself. So you're giving them that option. But I think you've just got to be brave enough to do it, and respect yourself enough as well. Like Alex said, yeah, it's your birthday.
Yeah. It's my 40th this year as well, and my 30th was like a proper kind of very, very, very messed up evening, and through my kind of sober journey, when I kind of stopped drinking, then I went back to drinking. I can remember being in a bar at a 40th, just with this idea of like, I can never be sober because I could never have a party. Who would come to my party as a sober person? And it just felt like a completely impossible kind of dream. And I can just remember being so alone, and then just going to the bar with this kind of like, just, you know, feeling of like, well, I just have to keep drinking, because otherwise I'm not going to have any friends. Like, I'm just going to be alone. And you know, the plan was, it won't be happening now, but the plan was that Scott, who is proud and sober, used to be the boy who drank too much, was going to throw a party for Pride, a gay Pride party, and I was going to kind of hijack it for my 40th as well. So it would have been fabulous, and it would have been wonderful, and it would have been full of all the people that I love, and I would have invited some of my drinking friends, but it would have been in the context of my space. And so yeah, I know it can be such a big thing for people, like, how am I going to get through my birthday, how am I going to get through Christmas, you know? And once you've done it, it's just like, wow, like, I can do anything now. And it's so much easier than you think it's going to be. So I just wanted to throw that one in there.
It can also be an excuse as well, so be careful of that. I think we can use all these reasons as excuses to have a drink, like I've got a holiday, I've got a birthday and things like that. But really, all these reasons are actually reasons to stop drinking. They're the perfect reason to do it. Experience your birthday sober, see what it's like. I think just be careful you're not making excuses for yourself and thinking, oh, I need a drink. You don't.
I'll just add, because it was my 50th last summer, like last.
No.
Thank you. That's what I was waiting for. Come on. No.
Was it really?
Serious?
You can't be 50.
Okay.
No.
Right, I'm serious. No way.
That is what
Can I just stop this whole talk? Listen, guys, sober and 50. There's a whole reason not to drink. Come on, she's amazing.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it.
Now that's what this is all about now, not about relationships. So, but like what I did, I was really kind of going, oh God, because there was that pressure, wasn't it? And usually I'm like, I don't care, you know, I do what I want. But I did feel like there was a lot of pressure to have a party. And also I just thought, I know that sometimes I do feel a little bit sad if I don't mark something, if I embrace my JOMO a bit too much, I can feel a bit bottom lip afterwards. So that's something that I am working with. So it doesn't just have to be the one occasion, right? So I decided that nothing was going to tick that box. So I had 3 birthdays, so for my 50th, right? So Mandy and I went to a spa together, to a hotel, to a spa together, because I really wanted that. And the other thing that I did, a friend of mine gave us tickets, me and my husband, to go to Glyndebourne, and we watched Cinderella at Glyndebourne Opera, and it was the Killing Eve director, and it was like the poshest thing I've ever done. And we took cakes, we had picnic, I had, you know, no alcohol fizz, and we both dressed up, and that was amazing. And then I did a brunch where it was like, okay, I can cope with 2 hours in a restaurant with people, and people brought their kids, and it was like, so I got that. So like, actually you could break it down and you could go, who are the people that are important to me? I might do a bit with my family, I might do another little brunch with somebody, and I might do something completely different. So, you know, have a think about all of that and break it down. You don't need to just celebrate. You can be like the Queen. You don't need to just have the one.
Brilliant. Can I just say something? Right, how many are on there? 40 and with us. Ready? Right, I'm 56 soon.
No,
What?
21.
Hold on, let me see. Any reaction? No.
No reaction.
Oh no, no. Kate got quite a lot of reaction.
Yeah, Kate did.
No.
You're like,
I still think you might not be telling the truth about that. I actually am looking at you. Do you know what? I'm not being funny, but we've got 2 Benjamin Buttons on here now, that means.
Wow, I love you. I'm 56. Oh, Heavenly says no. That's good. Right, keep it going. 56. How many can we get there? No, you look 36. Yeah, they're 56. You're having a laugh. Right. Oh, Kate, you look amazing.
yeah,
Right.
Kate, yeah.
You do, Kate.
Moving on.
There's a
Cheers,
question
Connor.
from Julia Smith as well, isn't there? You got that one, Mandy?
I lost it. Yeah, I did see it.
Okay, I'll read it out. I have had one close friend who was my drinking friend who just doesn't want to know me really anymore, doesn't call, doesn't invite me to the pub, etc. I found it hurtful, but looking back, our friendship was probably based too much around booze. It's hard not to be offended, but is it more her issue? Is there anything I should do to make more of an effort? Is it best to just let it go and move on? What do you think?
It's a hard one, that, isn't it? Because only you know your friendship there. If you feel like you've not made an effort in any other way, then maybe there's things that you can do. We said this on another one, but like when people said that to me, I'd ask them if they wanted to come for a morning walk rather than go to the pub. So it's 2 ways. This it is 2 ways.
Yeah.
But
I had this with like probably one of my best friends from, you know, the age of kind of 14, and we had a very kind of if you're using very codependent, we were very, very close, but very fractious. We had lots of arguments. We were very dependent on each other, and you know, me going sober, that friendship kind of broke down a lot, because at one point I was really, really in need of help, and the roles reversed, and I was always the one that was there for her, and it just didn't work. And so it was a long, long time. It was a little bit like the amount of conversations I had with my husband about, you know, getting sober and stopping drinking. It was that kind of, right, that's it. Like, I'm not, you know, we're done. Like, I can't do, you know, crying. Like, you know, It was very, very painful, long, drawn out process. And in the end, it came to the point where, because she wouldn't return my calls, you know, or she'd cancel plans, and it was really, really difficult. And so I was like, okay, that's it. And we didn't speak I didn't contact her or anything for about 6 months. And then I had a bad dream that she'd got murdered. And so there was obviously something in my consciousness that I didn't want to leave it like that. Like, it just didn't sit well with me. So I just really took my time and wrote kind of a message to her, just sort of saying, look, you know, I love you. I'll always be here. Obviously, like, things are different for us right now. You know, I totally respect that. You know, that kind of, just like a kind of a breakup letter, but in a very sort of positive, kind way. I was like, my door will always be open. Like, I love you. You know, and she wrote back and was like, yeah, you know, I love you too. Cool. And we've seen each other a few times and it's been fine, but it will never be the same. So I guess sit with it for a little while. That would be my kind of, you know, like, there's no point sort of flagging a dead horse. Like, if it's gone, it's gone. But, you know, sit with it for a while, how it feels for you. And if there's something where it still feels uncomfortable, then perhaps just sort of, you know, it's like makeups. It's like having sex with your ex, you know, sometimes you've got to do it and then you leave it.
You don't.
Sometimes you have to leave on a good note, no?
Oh, thanks. Didn't want to go with him.
But,
No, I get that. Yeah.
yeah.
I do get it. I see that I do get it.
But sometimes you just need to clear the air, I suppose, and just be like, right, I've said my piece. Like, I can walk away from this, not feeling like I haven't got any regrets, I suppose. That's what it was.
And time as well. I think things like that can take time sometimes. Like when I stopped drinking in that first 12 months when Alex hadn't, I wouldn't have been comfortable going out until all hours all the time. Do you know what I mean? I think it's, you do move differently, and these friends that I've got, I think, that I went out drinking with, that I stayed away from within the first 12 months, but actually I do see them now still, but not quite the same.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point now. It changes over the year. Lisa said this before as well. I tried really hard to keep up with my social life at the beginning just to prove a point that sober wasn't boring. But now I actually don't think sober's boring, and I don't care about keeping up an appearance either. So it does change. There's another question here. Well, it's not really a question, but I just wanted to point it out. So Barbara's saying, I need to find a sober friend where I live. We're all retirees and almost all get-togethers are alcohol infused. I feel like I'm the grandma or mother here. My oldest is 48. Please help. Will you all post below where you are and see if you're nearby, and maybe we can start a little bit of some get-together clubs, because there's lots of them around, aren't there? There's lots of like sober clubs in different areas, but maybe if you're in this group, you might actually be living next door to each other. So feel free to kind of use the group to see, you know, announce kind of the area you live in and see if anyone else lives nearby. So I think it's
the Barbara I know, I think she's near Washington, and but a good thing, as you said, Alex, is posting it, especially in the bigger groups. Like, is anyone? I mean, Kate mentioned Soberistas and how Mandy was living around the corner. That's a big group, so those sort of places, generally, you're going to find somebody relatively close, I would have thought.
Yeah,
Sober Girl Society does it, don't they?
She recovers for women in the US, especially because they have sort of circles that are, if you go onto the She Recovers website, then you can see where all the sharing circles are, and they have like groups within the group all over the US and Canada, and obviously Kate and I will be setting up ones in Europe when we can go outside. So
I'd say as well, I'd flag up Soberistas as well, because I think the demographic is slightly older female. It's predominantly female and it's slightly older. So than say Instagram, I think, and the Soda one. So that's a good place to make friends actually. And they do they will be doing meetups. And also because it's you go on there and that you have an avatar. I watched Avatar last night as well. But anyway, my brain is really fried today, I tell you.
Yeah.
No, it's like an untamed beast. It's like ranging all over the place. But you can really take your time and get to know people on Soberistas.
It's your age.
Fuck you. Grandad.
Hey Dave, somebody on it.
Oh,
They said that you're young enough to be their husband.
Ooh, I don't know what that means.
Sorry, just moving on. We've got another one here from Jan. She says, it's obviously in response to another comment, but the end of it is, am I weak because I'm still not sober after 1 year? So I presume she means she's been trying for a while. But I think it's really important here that it's a journey, isn't it, guys?
Yeah. I mean, William, I know, where can we start with this? Because, you know, that whole thing about weakness, willpower, it's just, that's not the conversation. I don't know if anyone else wants to sort of jump in with that there.
No. I mean, I spent 5 years where I was like, it just in this place of complete discomfort, internal conflict, half of me wanting to quit, half of me wanting to continue drinking. It was awful. So I totally get it. And then it was a pretty long time where I was actually trying, and day one after day one after day one. So it's a journey of growth and learning.
Simon, when you say you were trying at them points before, just say, because I've got to say, when I stopped, the first time I stopped was me stopping. I didn't really stop and start. So just out of interest, when you were trying them other times, were you immersing yourself in like all the Quit Lit books that are available and watching, like going into groups and
Yeah, I
being
was.
educated on it, was you?
Yeah, but it was more a case of I'd do a day or 2 days, which I think was my record, but I just couldn't get beyond it. And I kept reading, and that the thing is, it was continuing to educate myself that got me to the place where I needed to be. So I just kept plugging away and I made a commitment to myself that I was going to get there no matter what. So yeah, I was. Maybe it was a bit early, and I thought, well, I've read 2 chapters, so I'm just going to go for it, and I wasn't quite there.
But it just goes to show it's all different for everyone, isn't it? Like every single person, the thing's different. I did mine first go, and literally that was it, you know. And like you, Simon, other people, it's like snakes and ladders, isn't it? You throw a stick and go up, and then all of a sudden you come down. You got to keep trying and look at it as a learning curve on your journey, really.
Yeah, I did it first go once I'd committed to it properly, like Lisa was just saying. Once I actually wanted to really do it, not just toying with the idea of, I quite like the idea of it, but once I actually said, right, I am going to do this, and I immersed myself in the Quit Lit, the podcast, the community, then I was able to do it. What do you, I mean, I know Kate was just kind of asking William about it briefly then, but what do you think about that willpower weakness kind of thing, William?
Yeah, I don't see it as a willpower issue, because when you're drinking, it's not willpower or lack of willpower that stops you. It's a conflict of wills, because part of you wants to stop, but part of you actually wants to continue. So I think thanks, Simon.
Sorry.
So I think there's that element. But I think as well, what you can't, and I don't want to emphasize this too much, because people can, they can have a few weeks sobriety and then they can have problems for various reasons. But don't underestimate the extent to which the constant flux of chemical imbalance in your brain makes you feel weak, and it erodes your mental resilience. So a lot of the times I say to people, if you are really struggling, just give yourself 5 days. Just say you're going to go 5 days without drinking. Not that you'll start again after that, but you'll just get those 5 days under your belt, and then you will stop and revisit and just have a think about where things are. Because often people can get those 5 days. And what you'll find for a lot of people, when you've got those 5 days under your belt, you're not going to be back to where you ought to be had you never drunk, but you're going to got back like 50, 60, 70% of that mental resilience, that strength of character, which is naturally there, which you've eroded by the years of chemical imbalance caused by the drinking. And sometimes you just need that kick start to get you there. But don't ever think that it's you're weak-willed, because 2 things: alcohol makes you weak-willed, and when you quit it and you successfully quit it, you get your strength of will back. But as I say, drinking and quitting drinking isn't about weak will, it's about conflict of will, because as I say, part of you wants to quit, but part of you wants to carry on. That's the nature of it.
And I think your environment can beat willpower as well. If you actually, like, there's a really good example. It's on a training thing that I do, and it talks about, someone who's on a diet and they get in from work, there's nothing in the fridge. And so what do? They go and get burgers and takeaways, that sort of thing. And so actually setting up your environment, helps you not needing to rely on willpower, because if they'd maybe planned ahead and got food in the fridge, it takes it out of the equation. You're not even going to think about it. So I know that's a different kind of analogy, but actually thinking about your environment, limiting yourself so you can only make positive choices is, I suppose, what I'm saying in a short way.
And I think there's also that thing, when it's an addictive substance, so it's like, it's about not breaking the chain. And so, I've gone backwards and forwards many times. And, this is, as I said, I think I first logged on to Soberistas in 2013. So never give up. I mean, you will get there, and every time it's a learning process. But something that really helped me was kind of relating it to, you know, I'm an ex-smoker as well, and it was that thing of like, you know, every time I smoked again, I wasn't right back to day one, but I'd taken a step back, a huge step back. So, you know, I'd have to be like, okay, again, right, it's day one again. And so that thing of just like not breaking the chain, as Kate and I say, is just keep going, just keep going. You're building on that resilience and that strength every single day. And so, you know, when you've had a year of going backwards and forwards, you are going to feel exhausted by it, you know, and as soon as you can get that month, and then, you know, that 2 months, then you're going to be feeling stronger about it. We have someone here that says, well, Judy says, my age can beat you all. I'm 67 years young and I'm on day 70 on my journey. So that is...
Oh, that's amazing.
We have another one saying, I'm coming up to 100 days and I'm a bit anxious that it will be an anticlimax and that my pink cloud will pop.
Gets better and better and better.
Yeah, they don't pop.
But
You will have
but
up
do you
and
know
down,
what?
but it gets better.
About that, it's when I reached my year, I actually had a bit of a slump, because I think part of it was dry January and there was so much going on. But when it got to February, I actually had well, is that it then? Do you know what I mean? And I had a few days of I was struggling a little bit over it and sort of questioning. I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to drink, but it wasn't what I thought it was. But I'm, you know, I was over that pretty quickly, and now I'm heading up to my 500 days, which is another lovely landmark. But the pink cloud thing I had as well, because it was that sort of honeymoon period in the beginning where you're telling everyone, well, not all of us, but I was literally telling people at the bus stop, we're all different.
Yeah, I was.
You know, yeah, I'm sober, you know, you know, but yeah, I can understand that, but you do get over it. You know, you just got to look back and think about what you've been through and what you've achieved, really. Can I just say one more thing?
I'll keep going. Yeah, sorry, Kate.
I was going to say, set another milestone. So set another goal. Get the sober treats in as well, because it could be that you maybe, you know, you need to add something in. I would also say during my first year of sobriety, I did have a little bit of a slump every 3 months, and I used to call them the flat lines. So the first 100 days, the first 3 months almost mirrored the kind of drama of drinking, the ups and the downs. It was quite intense, and I think I was quite sort of addicted to that. I quite like the drama and the drive and the buzz. So when I sort of started to level out a bit, that sort of natural leveling out of all the hormones, the chemicals and whatever, I definitely found it was new and it was uncomfortable, and I was a bit like, oh shit, is this going to be it? So and then I got excited again. I remember blogging going, oh, I got my mojo back, I'm excited again. And part of that is sort of, when you've gone for longer, I think you can pull back and you can widen the aperture a little bit, and you see bigger cycles at work. So I definitely relate to that, and I would say don't worry. Just see it. Just see it. Oh, okay, this is, and then you'll come back up out the other side, and then when you get flat again, add something in, like, you know, I don't know what it is, your sober treats, and keep going, because it does get easier. So.
You definitely do, and I think that the happy periods get longer, and those little questionable periods do get shorter, and now I kind of see them coming when they happen to me, and I go, oh, it's just one of those days, and then all of a sudden you're out of it again and you're back on that pink fluffy cloud again. So I think that's great advice, Kate.
Guys, we unfortunately we're at 93 minutes now, so I think we could gas all night, to be honest.
We get all carried away, don't we? We get all excited talking to each other.
It's nice to be here with you every week.
It is.
It's been really lovely, guys. Thank you so much. Shame Clemmie had to go, but she did say that at the beginning to me, that she's got an hour, so that was nice. And I hope you'll join us next week. And they can leave questions in the comments after, can't they, that we can all answer if we haven't answered.
We've got another midweek one this week as well, Dave.
Have we?
Have we?
we've got Lotterdam this week on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I can't remember the time, but
so
we'll make sure we post it.
Lotterdam, author of Mrs. D, is going without.
Yeah, and she's in New Zealand, which is why we're doing a kind of later one on Wednesday, just because of the time differences. But she will be with us on Wednesday the 13th. So if you can make that, please do.
Brilliant, and we'll be putting it on all the socials, won't we? And
We
I
will.
cannot believe you're 50k.
I
Honestly.
can't.
No, I
That's
can't.
Crazy.
I'm going, see you later.
She's going for a nana nap now.
Thank you, guys. See you
Bye,
Wednesday,
everybody.
hopefully.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.